Good afternoon, everybody. If you can just comment in the chat to say that you see myself, Congressman Turner, and President Pinkard, that would be great. We want to welcome you today to our Christian Recorder Dialogues. I am very, very, very excited about this one. This one hits home for me for many reasons, and we'll talk about that later. But just welcome. I would like to invite you all to comment in the sections with your local church and Episcopal district and any questions you may have for Congressman Turner and President Pinkard. I am Lauren Wilson. I am a journalist for the Christian Recorder. I am also a Wilberforce, I would say, alum as well. I welcome you all. I am a part of the 1st District. My home church is St. Matthew AME, where my father, Reverend Melvin E. Wilson, is the pastor. So shout out to you all. And it's really great to be here. We have great guests. We're going to have a great conversation. It's going to be great. Congressman Turner is going to have to leave soon. So we're going to jump right into it. And again, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to talk about or anything, put it in the chat. Okay, so let's get started. Oh man, sorry. Let's get started. Congressman Turner, thank you for being here.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we want to thank you for all that you've been doing for Wilberforce University. It's not I don't think it's spoken of often with everything you contributed and what you're continuing to do for Wilberforce, but we want to highlight some things and ask you a few questions. So before being elected to Congress, you were the mayor of Dayton, Ohio.
That's right.
So if you could tell us about your relationship with the school of Wilberforce University and maybe the AME Church, if you have any relationship with them.
Sure. Well, serving both as mayor and a member of Congress, you have to have outreach into the community, and it's just been unbelievable, the ability to pull the community together. We're a community where people frequently talk about diversity and unity, but we're a community where everybody's already at the table. So we're constantly and always having that conversation. I want to thank President Pinkard for his leadership of Wilberforce University. In a position like I have, what you want is clear to-do list from people as to how you can impact what they're trying to accomplish. And we had a meeting in November where he discussed the issue of the university's debt, actually to the federal government, debt that had been entered into a long time ago for facilities that currently were in distress. And it was an impediment for the university to raise other funds because people, if they were contributing to Wilberforce University, they were afraid that those funds were going to go to debt retirement as opposed to advancing the university. So we were very excited to be able to work with the university. And in this last COVID package, I also serve as vice chair of the HBCU caucus in Congress. We were able to advance a package that included a debt retirement for HBCU colleges. And Wilberforce certainly is in line for that. And this can make a huge difference for the future of Wilberforce.
Absolutely.
Yes. And thank you for mentioning that. That leads me to my next question. But I do want to say it's refreshing to have somebody focus on HBCUs and understanding the importance of HBCUs, but specifically Wilberforce, because Wilberforce, though some may argue it, Wilberforce does play an integral part in HBCU history, AME history, and Black history as a whole. So I personally, as a HBCU student, I've attended a few HBCUs. We're grateful that you are doing this for us. So you mentioned being the chairman, I think, of the congressional
chair of the HBCU congressional.
Can you tell us a little about that and the work that you all are doing?
Well, what's important about this caucus is it pulls together the members who have these universities in their district, and it helps us do advocacy of the fact that frequently these universities are and colleges are underfunded.
Yes.
They serve a unique niche and a need, and they provide us great opportunities for both business and government as they look for diversity in their own workforce. So looking to ways at which we can increase their funding, stabilize them, provide funding to make certain that their programs are modern and continuing and reflected in the needs of the workforce, and then marrying government programs of internships, employment, and also industry to HBCUs, so that we can make certain that the great opportunity for students are realized as they get an education.
That's refreshing to hear, because most HBCUs I know, including Wilberforce, I'm not sure Wilberforce still does have it, but we had a thing called co-op. I'm not sure, President Pinkard, is that still active?
Oh, yes, we have.
Yeah, so we had co-op. When I attended Claflin University, we had our own version of that. So HBCUs are very good at preparing us for the real world, such as internships, helping us with job placement, job readiness, job etiquette. So it's really good to hear that you all are thinking beyond, and you know where we can go outside of that. And we always say we are a product of our HBCU, and we produce really good, upstanding people who can give back. So we're grateful for that. Lastly, because I know you have to go, this is huge, you all. So you were able to get $23 million of Wilberforce University's debt forgiven, which is like a sigh of relief by the federal government. So looking forward to the future, what else can be done by the government to assist Wilberforce and other HBCUs?
So I serve on the Armed Services Committee, and of course that means under our portfolio we have the Department of Defense. And we recently, working with Congressman Brown, we recently put legislation in the last National Defense Authorization Act that requires all agencies and branches of the DoD to look at their policies and ways in which they can marry themselves to HBCUs on internships and on employment, and specifically on employment, as you mentioned, co-ops, but opportunities that can allow students to start the process of getting what is a necessary clearance to have access to classified material. That's like the gold card for employment within DoD, and it's very difficult to get. Once you graduate, if you seek a position and you don't have the clearance, you have to wait. Sometimes it can take up to a year, and the competition is with others who have clearance. So we're trying to back that system up. Open the door to students of HBCUs to start the process of getting a clearance by having a position within DoD that leads to that. And then they can evaluate when they graduate, either in industry that has obviously clearance work that they do with the Department of Defense, or directly with the Department of Defense. Those are some of the ways that we're starting to say, look, the federal government needs to do a better job of looking at the uniqueness of these universities and these colleges, and how can they take their existing program and tailor them, because we all talk about diversity in the workforce. Here's an ensured way to make certain that these students can have success.
Absolutely.
Yes, and thank you for that. It's actually putting a plan actually to action, and it's great. It's great to see it. It's nice to hear it, but when it's actually being done, or at least it's in the process of it, it's good to have that. Well, thank you. And thank you again for everything that you're doing, not just for Wilberforce University, but for other HBCUs. So to Congressman Mike Turner, who is also, I didn't mention, a representative of Ohio's 10th district, we would like to thank you for being here, and want to ask if you have any final words for your viewers.
I want to thank President Pinkard, because taking the leadership of a college like this, where it needs a turnaround, where it has this debt to the federal government, and recognizing that just about every opportunity that he has for raising capital, for raising funds, for getting this university, back on its feet again, is hitting this impediment. Gave us the opportunity to try to help, and I look forward to what he's going to do with Wilberforce in the future, because certainly his leadership is important.
Well, thank you, Congressman. And we could not have done it without partners like you. And so thank you on behalf of the entire Wilberforce University family. And I do this work because I really do believe that this is the work that God has asked me to do. And I do it in concert with an incredible team of faculty, staff, and administrators who work for and on behalf of Wilberforce each and every day. But thank you and your colleagues for your faith in Wilberforce and for all that you've done on our behalf. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Care.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Be well.
President Pinkard.
Yes, Ms. Wilson. It's good to be with you. Good to be with you.
I'm so excited for many reasons.
Oh, well, yeah,
I'm giddy. I'm giddy
yeah.
because I've been to Wilberforce a few times since you've been president and have not been able to meet you. So I am excited to finally be able to have my one-on-one with you. And let me just say, you've been doing amazing work.
Well, thank you.
We are on behalf of not just Wilberforce, but the AME Church. We are very grateful to have you. You took on a challenge and you're doing it. So we're grateful for it. So we're going to hop into the question.
So much. Absolutely.
Let's just talk.
Let's do it. Yes.
Tell me about your personal faith and your relationship with the AME Church.
Yeah, that's a great question. I see God's work each and every day, Lauren. Each and every day that I am with Wilberforce University, I see God's work and God's grace and mercy. And so I have an intimate relationship with God in that I know that I have been placed at Wilberforce for this particular time. This, as you've noted, is very hard work, as everyone has said, but it is God's work. And I feel every day that I have been placed here to do this work. And so I begin each day in prayer and thanksgiving for the wonderful opportunity to be invited into the lives of young people, to help them as they pursue their journey to get a college degree and do it at Wilberforce University, and an institution that is so steeped in history and legacy, as you've noted. I've come to know and to be involved with the AME Church because of my knowledge of its role in the development of Wilberforce and the continual connection that exists. And of course, as you know, the chancellor of our institution is the Bishop Frank Reed III, who is also the bishop for the 3rd Episcopal District where Wilberforce resides. And so it is a relationship that is intimate, it is ongoing, it's a working relationship, it's a very practical relationship, and it's a relationship that without which this institution would not be able to exist or to even imagine a future and moving forward. And so on the one hand, I'm confronted each day with God's mercy, and my faith is continually fed and strengthened because I know that this work is important to work, and it is work that I have been put here to do. So it's a part of my own personal destiny as well.
As us church people say, he prepared you for such a time as this.
And we've all grown up hearing that, but you don't really, it doesn't resonate until you are actually living it. And you really feel very strongly. And that also that's faith in action, because when you face the challenges, you rest on that faith. I mean, there were challenges that we have faced and continue to face at Wilberforce. And I'm always able to say, but I know God has me because I have not been put here to fail. And that's an incredible sense. And that's really faith in action. That's what living faith is about. It's one thing to talk about it. It's quite another to live it.
Wow. You're absolutely correct. So this is not a question that I have, but it just hit me and I want to ask you it.
Sure.
So when I pulled up to Wilberforce, my first ever time, I actually flew in for an interview with my father. As I mentioned, my father is an AME pastor. And I went in for an interview on a cold day with my dad. I got accepted on the spot. We pulled up, we're looking at Wilberforce, like, okay, you know. So my first day actually being a student at Wilberforce was August 4th, 2008. I remember like it was yesterday, but I remember how I felt when I pulled up on campus and just seeing the families, seeing the fraternities and sororities helping students into freshmen, you know, and I was just so giddy. And my father and mother, before pulling off, said, "Now, are you sure about this? Are you sure you want to do this?" And I said, "I do. I think this is what I'm meant to be here." Yes. What was the feeling for you with stepping on Wilberforce the first time as the president? Like, what did you feel?
Well, now remember, my journey to Wilberforce, again, it's nothing but God. My journey to Wilberforce, I came to Wilberforce with my predecessor, Dr. Herman Felton. Dr. Felton brought me to Wilberforce, and I came first to Wilberforce as the executive vice president and provost. Okay. So I came as the chief academic officer. And I came with the intention of supporting Dr. Felton in his role as president of Wilberforce. As God would have it, as things happen in our lives, he got another opportunity, and his destiny took him elsewhere. And it was in February of 2018 that the board appointed me president. So again, another reason why I'm so sure that I've been put here for a reason, because I did not come here to be president. And being president was nothing that was a part of my personal professional aspiration. In fact, I came to support another person in their quest to build and to lead Wilberforce. And so here I am as president. So to your question, by that time, I had become so much in love with this institution. The history, the legacy of this institution was so powerful that there was no way that I could not accept what I knew would be a challenging presidency initially, so that we could take Wilberforce and return Wilberforce in many ways to its former prominence. You alluded earlier that some people might question Wilberforce's claim to be the very first institution of higher learning, first HBCU. There is no questioning about it. It's part of the historical fact. And I say this to people all the time. And if you would allow me, I would make it clear to your audience. And first of all, let me preface by saying we're not in competition with our sister institutions. No. We're all in this. It's all a part of love, but it's also important that people understand history because history is important. Wilberforce University was founded in 1856 as Wilberforce University. Cheney University was founded in 1837, and it began as the Institute for Colored Youth in 1837. It did not become Cheney University as we know it until the turn of the century. Lincoln University, which also makes the claim of being, was founded in 1854 as Ashmun Institute. It did not become Lincoln University until 1865. Wilberforce University is the only one of the three that started in 1856 as Wilberforce University and remains Wilberforce University in 2021. There has never been a name change. We were never started as an institute and became Wilberforce University. We were founded in 1856, 165 years ago, as Wilberforce University. Another way that I have people understand this is if you were on the earth in 1856 and you were in America and you were walking the land and you were interested in finding a university for Black folk, the only university that you would have found for Black folk would have been Wilberforce University.
Drop them facts.
No, that's, there's no ambiguity there.
No, I know. I appreciate.
But I hear what you're saying. I know.
No. I appreciate you saying that, and the reason being is because once you're a part of the HBCU family, no matter where you went, you are a part of it. However,
that's right.
There's always some.
Yes. And most often than not, when you Google, most people will. Cheney has that claim. Most people will refer to Cheney University as the nation's first Black university, the first HBCU. But it was the first educational institution in 1837, without a doubt. It was one of the very first educational institutions. But in terms of a university,
right, we've always been.
That was Wilberforce in 1856. And we have the distinction, of being founded by people of African descent.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And private. And co-ed. Yes.
Co-ed. No, that That's
Yeah.
good. That's good because I'm always back and forth with my Cheney and Lincoln friends.
No, that's right. Exactly.
And I appreciate you breaking it down because now
Okay.
I did not even know that
Sure.
since the beginning of time, we have always been
That's right.
Wilberforce University. So thank you for that. I will be sure to call my friends after this call. So you're no stranger to HBCUs.
Oh, no, certainly not.
How have other experiences prepared you for this?
Oh, by the time I got to Wilberforce, I had worked at 6 other HBCUs.
Really?
Oh yeah, I've worked at Spelman, I've worked at Dillard, I've worked at Johnson C. Smith, I've worked at Paul Quinn, and I've worked at I'm missing something, and Florida Memorial. So I began my work. I began my work at HBCUs at Florida Memorial, which was at that time Florida Memorial College in Miami, Florida. I left there and went to Tougaloo College in Jackson, Mississippi. From Tougaloo, I left there and went to Paul Quinn. From Paul Quinn, I left there and went to Spelman. From Spelman, I went to Dillard, New Orleans, and then I went to my final HBCU before coming to Wilberforce was Johnson C. Smith in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I know the HBCU community well. Now, all of these were private HBCUs. I've never worked at a public HBCU, but I worked at private HBCUs. And then I spent some time at UNCF, United Negro College Fund, which everyone knows is the major advocacy and fundraising group for private HBCUs. I worked there as the inaugural director of the Institute for Capacity Building. And as a part of that work, we assisted the 37 UNCF member institutions to build internal capacity. And so that work gave me an opportunity to get to know other institutions that perhaps I had not worked, but I began to understand the issues, the culture, and each of these institutions has an incredible story. That's the beauty of HBCUs. Each has an incredible story, incredible symbols, incredible institutional saga about which they rightly should be proud. Alums of every one of these schools should rightly be proud. And because it's an incredible group of schools that have done that means so much, not only to Black folks, but to this nation. And I think that needs to be lifted up even more, that HBCUs are incredibly important, not only to the African-American community, but to the larger community as well.
Thank you. I did not know that. Yeah, you're heavily indebted into this HBCU life.
Yeah, I've been doing this work for a bit. And then of course, for a bit. And then I went to undergraduate, went to an HBCU undergraduate and got my first degree at an HBCU.
Where did you go?
I went to Morehouse as an undergraduate and got my first, I got a master's at Howard. So the first 2 degrees.
Nice. Yeah, honestly, once you get the bite of the HBCU bug, it is
addictive.
Very hard to go anywhere else. So we are living in challenging times.
Absolutely, we are.
It's always a good day to be able to wake up and just see what's happening and just be grateful for what God has given us. We are living through the pandemic.
Yes.
We're coming up on a year, actually. It may be a year, according to some people already. Has the school faced any challenges during this
absolutely. Higher education has faced a challenge, and Wilberforce is no exception in that regard. Our community, the community that of students that we serve, of course, the African American community primarily has been disproportionately impacted by this COVID-19. We certainly know that. Early on, what we found was as we pivoted to a complete virtual teaching and learning environment, that we needed to make sure that our students had the devices that they would need. I mean, we could not assume that every student had access to a computer. And so we made sure that students had computers. We made sure that students had hotspots so that they could access. We needed to make sure, and this was a challenge, that our faculty, many of whom had been used to teaching a particular kind of way, that they were open to being trained as they had to pivot and teach very differently. And so that was important. That was a challenge. The university lost revenue when we pivoted to virtual teaching and learning, and we had to vacate our campus because of the threat of COVID-19 last March. All of that revenue that came to the university in terms of housing and was lost, and so we returned that to students. That was important, that students be given money that they had given to the university in earnest to support their housing if housing was no longer available. And so we had to return that. That was not even a question that we would do that. And because the university moved very differently in terms of how it operated, we had to do some initial layoffs, well, they weren't complete layoffs. They were, what's the term you use? Furloughs.
Furlough,
we were able to bring people back, fortunately. And then we needed to, and this has been a perpetual challenge that we're still working through. How do you keep students engaged? I mean, part of the HBCU experience, as you have articulated very passionately, Lauren, is the coming together, the being on campus, the family atmosphere, the touching, the letting students know that we're here for you, that connection between students and faculty, students and staff, students and students. How do you replicate that? How do you make sure that that happens while we are all apart? And I would oftentimes say to students, we might be apart, but we're still together. And we'll come back together soon. And so being able to really encourage that and really support that has been a challenge. And then finally, and this has been a challenge that is really a little bit troublesome, and that is there have been a lot of prognosticators and futurists that have said small, special mission, rural schools like a Wilberforce will not survive post-COVID. And so hearing that often, hearing that a lot, you will not survive, Wilberforce will not survive, it has emboldened us in many ways. It has emboldened us to say, okay, we're going to show you. It has also helped us to, again, live in the faith that you and I talked about at the beginning of this discussion, live in that and really and believe in that, and to call on God and to see God's work every day in small ways that assured us that we continue to be in God's grace and that we were going to get through this and get through this in a big way. But it also required that we be intentional, strategic, in our internal thinking about the future of Wilberforce. So we were not going to just sit back and say, oh, we're in the midst of COVID-19, but we use this as an opportunity to come away stronger. And we've spent time over the last year doing just that.
I really resonate with what you just said, because as a teacher in the NYC DOE area, there's been a lot of bad with this pandemic. However, I am grateful that the pandemic has brought forth and brought to light the disparities and things that have been issues, such as I teach high school kids, making sure they, like you said, have hotspots, making sure they have devices, making sure they have a meal, because let's just keep it real. Some of my students only eat when they're at the school. So how do we fix all of that, along with keeping their momentum and encouraging them? And it's hard. And I understand, especially them being a college student. And I've actually gotten a few of my students into HBCUs. However, they do not want to go because if they cannot physically be there to experience, like you said, they don't want it. And I keep telling them, for one, there's light at the end of the tunnel. It's not going to always be like this. But understand, we are a family, and we want to do our best until the Lord says otherwise. So I resonate, and I appreciate you fighting through this. And let's be clear, Wilberforce, we've been through a lot. We can overcome this.
Well, you know what? You're absolutely right, Lauren. And oftentimes when I'm speaking to audiences about Wilberforce, I will say that there are 4 years in the history of Wilberforce that speak to our resilience and tenacity. One year is 1865, when we had the fire of 1865, and we overcame that. The next year was 1921. There was another fire in 1921, Shorter Hall, which was an iconic building at Wilberforce, was destroyed. The next year was 1947, which was the big split when the combined normal industrial department went stateside. It almost decimated Wilberforce because faculty, administrators, funding all went stateside to what eventually became Central State University. And the final year of challenge has been 2020, with the onset of a global pandemic. Each one of those times, Wilberforce has shown what it is capable of. And so I say to all that love this institution, that are connected to this institution, believe that resilience and triumph over challenge is part of our DNA. It's part of who we are. And we've demonstrated it in the past, and we will continue to demonstrate it, but we must do it collectively. We must support the institution. That's very important. We must not speak ill of the institution, no matter what our issues may be in the public marketplace, because that tarnishes what we're able to do. And social media can be our friend, but it can also be an incredible place, an incredibly destructive place with destructive language aimed at an institution because you may have had a bad experience or your child may have had a bad experience. We know that that happens, and what I encourage students and their parents to do, call us up. Let's work through this. Let's not work this out through social media. Let's work this out face to face. So that's just a little bit of one of my soapbox issues, because I'm on social media a lot, and sometimes I see language and conversation that is really very destructive to the institution, and it does not serve anyone well.
It does not. No, it doesn't. And though I'm sure you understand, especially with your history at HBCUs, you can understand students and parents' frustrations about.
Oh, absolutely.
But you're absolutely correct. Especially in this social media age, we type first and then think about it later.
That's right.
So I understand you're right. At the end of the day, I always tell people you can feel whatever way you want to feel, but this is where you got your education.
That's right.
This is at one point it was serving you well.
That's right.
But
we don't want to. I don't want to absolve the university of any responsibility in this as well. As you say, we have to make sure that we are operationally efficient. We have to make sure that we're transparent. Absolutely. We have to make sure that we connect with families and resolve issues. That's very important, and we value that here at Wilberforce, and that's what we're trying to model in the work that we do every day.
And we thank you for your transparency. Honestly, it is very important to have a leader and to have a university who is just honest about what's happening and where we are.
That's right.
What we need. So we are going to get into that question a little later on about how we can support.
Sure.
And I'll get into a little of my story quickly, how I know for a fact support and donating is essential. But we'll get into that. So let's lighten the load a little, you know.
Okay.
And this is my favorite question to you. So yes. I'm a former Wilberforce University student. Every time I talk about it, I light up. Okay. Mm-hmm. I have really good memories at Wilberforce. And it really shaped me and started my love for HBCUs. And ever since then, I've been an advocate for them. So when it comes to Dawn Dance, I'm there every year. When it comes to anything homecoming, anything that is Wilberforce related, I'm all in because I genuinely love it. But it's embedded into my heart. So it is who I am as a person. And I know anyone who's attended the HBCU understands what I mean by it's in you.
That's right.
It's in your blood. So how have you been able to keep the traditions of Wilberforce alive?
Well, we're doing some new things. We're creating new traditions. Of course, we're keeping Dawn Dance will always be a
Dawn Dance.
Prominent Dawn Dance. Of course, we need to look at doing it differently in the age of COVID. Last year, of course, it came right at Dawn Dance was scheduled right as we were responding to this pandemic, and so everything was canceled. This year, we're trying to see how we can do something a little bit differently. But we recognize that dawn dance is an important part of the tradition and experience of Wilberforce, and we want to honor that, and we want to grow it. And so dawn dance is still very important. But we do other things as well. Now, of course, we still have Thursday chapel. That's
wow.
Thursday chapel. Before we stopped with COVID, Thursday chapel at 11 o'clock on campus. That was a part of, again, a tradition, a part of who we are as an institution. But there are a couple of other things that we've done. So for example, every Founders Day now, we do what we call love letters to Wilberforce. That has become our tradition. And we invite alums to come and tell us about their Wilberforce experience.
Oh,
and so as a part of the Founders Day convocation, we have love letters to Wilberforce. We started that last year. And we want that to become a tradition. Another new tradition that we have is for honors convocation each year now. We don't invite a speaker. The student who is the highest GPA at that point does the honors address. And so that's another tradition. We also have the opening school. I'm sure we had an opening school convocation, but we now have an opening school convocation where we gather to officially open the school year. Another tradition, I don't know whether this was, I suspected it may have been, we certainly, let's say, revised it, and that is on commencement day, on graduation day, the graduating senior class, they gather at the fountain for a prayer. And to recognize that the fountain is sort of the symbolic symbol center of the institution, and then they walk over, process over to the multiplex. So these are some of the ways that we're trying to inculcate into. We also now have our Bayard Rustin lecture series, which is in honor of Bayard Rustin, who was a significant social justice advocate. He was one of the key strategists for the civil rights movement, was a advisor to Martin Luther King, but also was a 1937 student at Wilberforce University. And people aren't aware of that. And so we have his lecture, the lecture series, where we invite people, social justice advocates in to the university. Of course, we had to suspend that for this past year. But these are some of the ways that we are creating traditions. I don't know whether drums were used at commencement when you were here, but we now begin our commencement and our significant convocations with African drums, African drums. Again, another tradition. So we are, those are the ways that we are trying to, again, because traditions are important ways of connecting people with their, with who they are collectively. And for us, we have the additional sort of, it's a gift of being connected with the African Methodist Episcopal Church, which has such grounded in African American history as well. And so this really sort of allows us to do that. So those are some of the ways that we're trying to continue traditions and create new ones for our students.
We thank you for that, because one thing I know about HBCUs, regardless of when they were founded, we are big on tradition. We are very serious about our tradition. And kind of turn our nose up at new traditions because we're so into our old tradition, because that's what makes us who we are. Yeah. And but I love that, you're incorporating and starting, new things. There's nothing wrong with new. And I do think that Wilberforce University, you're a breath of fresh air, and we do just need some new things to happen. But that's that's amazing. And as you were talking, we always say Wilberforce is small. Well, you would be surprised. I mean, you wouldn't be, but other people would be surprised at how many people have went to Wilberforce.
Oh, absolutely.
Know about Wilberforce.
Oh, yes.
I'm sometimes in just random talking with someone who knows nothing about an HBCU, but they've heard about Wilberforce.
Absolutely.
So there's been an impact regardless of, and of course within the AME Church. I mean, even my presiding prelate, Dr. Bishop Ingram, he is a graduate of Wilberforce. Uncle Sylvester Beeman,
That's right.
graduate of Wilberforce. Me and my father were roommates in college at Boston University. So we're a family. Everyone's connected some way, shape, or form. Quickly, I someone asked the question, and that's actually one of my questions. So I want to acknowledge it. She wants to know, what can the church as a whole, the church AME, do right now for the sustainability of Wilberforce, and what can individual churches do? Before you answer your question, I've written a few articles within the Christian Recorder and other publications about how we support Wilberforce, specifically for Wilberforce, because at that time that's where I was. But I'm realizing that across the board, HBCUs need support. However, focusing on Wilberforce. Wilberforce is an African Methodist Episcopal school. Okay. Right. And what can we do as AMEs to support Wilberforce University?
Well, Lauren, that's an excellent question. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to answer.
And don't hold back. Tell us what we need to do.
For your audience, absolutely. So understand that for every institution of higher learning in the country, the lifeblood of that institution are two things: students and financial resources.
Yes.
Students and money. And to the extent that people aren't always able to give money to the institution, it's time for us to return to when we got significant students from our AME churches. I don't know when that stopped. I suspect that stopped around the time that other institutions were opening themselves up for our students. But if you can begin to rechannel students and at least give them the openness to attend a Wilberforce or another AME school, that's how we can be supported. When our accrediting body looks at us, when a prospective donor looks at us, when a prospective investor looks at us, the first question they ask is, what is your enrollment? Because the number of students at an institution suggests that the institution is attractive to prospective students, to prospective students and their families, that it is robust, that it's going to be around for a while. And so students start to have conversations with the young people in your churches about where are they interested in going to school, and introducing Wilberforce as a place of possibility for them. And then, of course, we can always use donations. We can always use money coming into the institution, but it's important that you believe and trust that your money is going to be well used. Because I have to say, and I'm not suggesting that this is with the AME Church, but one of the things that we have as Black folk is, in some ways, in insignificant moments, we are a bit mistrustful, particularly when it comes to money. I can't tell you the amount of questions that I get, and I'm just going to say this from alumni in general, not any specific alums. What are you doing with the money? What are they doing with the money? A lot of the conversation on Facebook is about, what are they doing with the money? Where's the money going? And so it's part of my job to be transparent about that. But it's also important that as a result of that transparency, that people are trusting that when they contribute to Wilberforce, they can do two things. They can tell us how they want the money to be used. So you can do a restrictive gift saying, I want this money to be used for scholarships for students who are only from Detroit. Or you can say, I want this money to be used for general operations at the university. I want this money to be used to support programs in. You can restrict a gift and you can monitor that gift. But it's important that you believe fundamentally that your money is going to be well spent, and that the money is, no one's pocketing the money. No one's doing anything dishonorable with the money. So back to the original question, students and finances. Those are the two ways, very specifically. And of course, we always can use people's talents and their abilities if they want to come and work at the university. We always have a room for people with a talent that they want to put at the disposal of Wilberforce. But to that question, how can the church help? Those are two very specific ways. And very
thank you for that. And personally, I went to Wilberforce during a challenging time. However, I loved it nonetheless. You couldn't tell me nothing about Wilberforce. I don't care if we were struggling or not. Okay. However, I say all of that to say that when I transferred to Claflin University,
oh yes, I know Claflin,
in Orangeburg, South Carolina, I became heavily involved with alumni giving. Claflin University is the top HBCU when it comes to alumni giving. We're over 50%. And I say all of that not to say not to brag, but I say it to say that it's possible.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And I saw the system. I saw what was happening, and just like some people at Wilberforce alum, they had some of the same worries and issues. Being transparent and letting them know what this money can go towards or where would you like it to go. But it's possible for alum to support diligently their university. And I've seen it happen. So I know for a fact it can happen. And, I say that to encourage everyone, not just AMEs, but Wilberforce alum, that we have to keep, it's for us by us, as Ebony mentioned. It's for us by us, and we have to keep this going. It's up to us.
That's right.
It really is up to us, because leading into my next question, over the last 5 years, several HBCUs have closed. You know? So what would you say to persons who are concerned about the future of Wilberforce?
Well, that's a legitimate question. I can tell you that we have been very much involved in a very disciplined and rigorous way over the last 2 or 3 years at Wilberforce, doing a number of things. First of all, we've articulated our value proposition. We can now say we have very much intention of becoming a first-rate liberal arts institution with a college to career and entrepreneurial intention for students with high potential, whose talents and intellect are oftentimes ignored and marginalized. That's who we are. That's who we wish to become as an institution. And so we have become very clear about value proposition. And you hear value proposition all often. You know, what is your value proposition? And so for an institution to do that is to set them apart in terms of the marketplace. We've been very intentional about our strategic plan. We have a strategic plan, Wilberforce 2025, a return to prominence. We have outlined 6 pillars for the strategic plan upon which our work is based. Operational efficiency, fiscal responsibility, enrollment and retention, academic excellence, student engagement, brand advancement, and establishing a culture of excellence at the institution. And so our strategic plan is based on those 6 pillars. We've looked at program development. We have a degree completion program, the CLIMB program, which has been in existence since 1991. Just this morning, I've been in discussions about how we can develop that program, move into new market majors that are consistent with what this area needs, looking at connections and collaborations with Wright State, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We have a master's program in clinical rehabilitation counseling, where we are training clinicians who are interested in going out and working with opioid addicted individuals been marginalized. That's a niche that we're filling. Wilberforce is doing that. We are creating clinicians and a cadre of professionals to work with individuals there. We have a Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, where we are working with young people who have expressed an interest in one day becoming entrepreneurs. In fact, just this semester, we will be hosting as an entrepreneur in residence a young man by the name of Greg Harbut. And now this is interesting because Greg Harbut is a third generation thoroughbred owner. And so he will be introducing students to the business side of the horse racing industry, one of few African Americans in that field. And so this is what the work that we're doing. For the last 3 years, we didn't do it last summer. We have sent our students who are interested in becoming writers to the Emerson College Writers Colony in Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
Wow.
And this is something little known, but this is what we're doing for our students at Wilberforce. And so it's important for those who are interested in the future of Wilberforce to know that we have done and will continue to do the disciplined and rigorous work of outlining a path forward for a sustainable and vital Wilberforce. Do we have challenges? We absolutely do. But we are intentional in terms of establishing an institution that is strong and that will be around for 165 years and more. We are just about to engage a fundraising firm to help us strengthen our fundraising operation. We have just hired a new vice president for academic affairs. So we now have a chief academic officer. We have new leadership in the Climb program. And so there are a number of very positive things going on at the institution that we are very, very proud of. And we think that we know that the future of Wilberforce is bright.
So you mentioned, thank you. You mentioned earlier, like about when I asked you how can we better support, and of course money, of course, because you did mention you know, words and all that. But so to everyone watching, because as you were talking, it came to me that you know, not everyone is able to give financially, especially during this time because of the pandemic. However, the media and news and social media and even our own people, because we are our worst enemies at times, we don't promote this stuff. We don't even know this stuff is happening. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. Half of the stuff you just mentioned, I had no clue was happening at Wilberforce. And that's to my fault as well. But it's our job to work with you all cohesively to be able to spread the good news. And I think everything you mentioned is absolutely amazing and should be spread because all the negative is spread. Every time something bad happens in Wilberforce, it's in the news. But what about the good that we're doing? What about what we're producing? Who we're producing? What the opportunities and resources that we're giving to students? I'm gonna go back and get me another master's.
Absolutely.
You know? Why not? You know, it's amazing just to hear all of these things, and I think we collectively can do a better job at getting the good news out there. You know?
And you're absolutely right, and we know that as well. And so, we recognize at Wilberforce, because there has been over the last several months, and everyone recognizes this, a real spotlight on HBCUs, particularly coming from the philanthropic community.
Right.
In a matter of 2 or 3 months, $350 million was given to the HBCU sector. But they all went to, but not every institution has benefited from that. And we recognize that. And so that has occasioned an internal conversation for Wilberforce in terms of how can we best market ourselves so that we can become top of mind for philanthropists as they are considering supporting HBCUs. And so we've been able to bring on board an incredible individual in Marsha Barnhart, sort of dropping names here. And so I want to thank Marsha for all that she's doing. We have an incredible team of individuals, but Marsha specifically has really gotten us a lot of press, and it's all been good press lately. And that is changing the narrative. You are so right, Lauren. When people think of Wilberforce historically, particularly over the last several years, all of what they heard was not flattering at all, and it did not allow for people who might be interested in supporting the institution. It was not encouraging. And so we recognized that we needed to change that narrative and that we had legitimate content in order to do that. And so we are recognizing the need to engage in thought leaders who can help us develop a kind of story and narrative and plan that gets Wilberforce and tells very powerfully the Wilberforce story and tells the work that we're currently that's currently being undertaken at Wilberforce.
So I could talk to you about this all day, but I won't. We're gonna wrap up, but someone did have a question. Since we are in the digital age, especially now during the pandemic, can you talk quickly about your online programs?
We don't right now. We are in a hybrid situation.
Okay.
And so some of our students are taking their courses virtually, and some of our students are on campus, about half of our students are on campus. We don't have any online programs as such right now. But that is a part of our plan. Certainly, we're going to start with our adult degree completion program. I have online programs for the adult learner. But we recognize, particularly post-COVID, now that we know that the virtual environment is an environment where people can teach and learn, that any institution who is looking at the future clearly will see that an opportunity rests with online programs. And so stay tuned is what I would.
And this is just more reason as to why we need to stay open. Okay.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
President Pinkard, thank you so much.
Lauren,
I am just look out for an email from me.
Okay.
Because I have tons of ideas.
Okay.
I've been, especially since I came from another HBCU and I got to see how it,
Yes.
I think there's room for so many things. And along with me and my crew, my girls, since coming in, we have been tight knit, and I mean, it's just been a wonderful experience. We as Wilberforce family are grateful to have you.
Well, thank you so much.
I mean that we're grateful to have you. The AME Church is grateful to have you. But there's work to be done. And,
absolutely.
And I feel it's our responsibility as AME members to do what we can. We can't do it all, but we can do something. And it is our job to keep our institutions alive, and not just alive, but running well.
That's right. And flourishing.
And flourishing, not just making it by, we need to be full in.
That's right.
The reason as to why HBCUs were created is why we still need them today.
Absolutely.
So yes, for those who do question, are HBCUs still relevant? They are relevant in so many ways. And as President Pinkard has mentioned, all the great things Wilberforce is doing. We thank you for your knowledge. We thank you for your dedication. We thank you for your hard days. And we understand how it goes, but your faith that you've mentioned earlier has kept you in this game. And we thank you for it. Do you have any closing words before I move?
One other thing that I would say, you all asked how the church can help, everyone can help us. Students, finances, and of course your prayers. Always your prayers. Keep us in your prayers. Keep Wilberforce in your prayers, as we will keep you in ours. And I thank you for this opportunity to talk about this incredible institution, Wilberforce University. And thank you to the AME Church for being a part of our very beginning and being a part of us as we are here today, and certainly as a part of our future. So thank you all very much. It's been great being with you today.
Thank you. And also, go visit Wilberforce.
Absolutely. Come visit.
You have to drive through.
Right.
Actually, come see it. A lot of people have so much to say, but they have never seen it. So come on to the campus, see what's happening, see all the good work. It's beautiful land. See what we're surrounded by.
That's right.
It will make sense after a while. I have so many memories driving down that long road. And also, my uncle is visiting Payne. And Payne being right there. So if y'all visit Payne, y'all can come down the road to Wilberforce.
It's right around the corner.
Show some love. Come check it out. See what's happening. It's beautiful. The air is different. In Ohio. So check it out. So we want to thank you again. I'm going to make a few announcements and you can be and so again, it's been scrolling. Donate to Wilberforce University at wilberforce.edu/donate. You can also donate to Wilberforce on Amazon. If you, I know a lot of people don't know that, but Amazon Smile allows you to donate to organizations and charities. Wilberforce University is one of them. I have mine linked to Wilberforce. So that's another way. But please, 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 you all donate. And as President Pinkard said, you can say where you want your donation to go to. And I did not know that either. So please donate what you can, when you can. Nothing's too small. So we're open to it. Our next dialogue will be in March. So please support the Christian Recorder by buying a subscription of $36. There's nothing like having a physical publication. I understand we're in digital age, but just for $36 a year, you can have all the publications to there. So you can visit thechristianrecorder.com to submit a subscription. Please support, and we thank you for supporting the AME Church Publishing House for your church, school, and worship needs. So you can visit there at www.amepublishing.com. We thank you for that. The Lenten devotional published by the Christian Education Department is available at ameced.com. That's the 2021 Lenten Daily Devotional. You could order that as well. And we also invite you to join us for Ash Wednesday for a brief service that will be streamed live on the Christian Recorder's Facebook page. Again, that will be the Ash Wednesday for a brief service that will be streamed on the Facebook page, featuring Bishop Ann Henning Byfield and our very own editor, John Thomas III. And John Thomas did want me to mention to President Pinkard that he is a Morehouse graduate as well. So shout out to Morehouse. We would like to thank our sponsors. We can't do this without sponsors. So we would like to thank Beeman for Bishop 2021. Thank you for your sponsorships, and Eldridge for Treasurer 2021. We do understand our general conference has been pushed back due to the pandemic. I am under the understanding that things are in the making. So we thank you for our sponsors. Again, we just thank you all for tuning in. I hope that it was as informative to you as it was to me, President Pinkard. Look out for an email. And I'm very serious. I have ideas. And just thank you for your leadership, your dedication. And again, people like myself and other people who want to see Wilberforce grow and flourish, pass that info on to us so we can spread the good news. That is pivotal. So thank you for your team who has started this marketing. We can call it a campaign and getting the word out there. And we just thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And we will have a good day. And thank you for the viewers. And y'all have a good day.
Right. Thank you all.
Thank you.